Are you up for playing a classic RPG such as Ultima, The Bard's Tale, Wizardry, or Pool of Radiance? Maybe you're discovering these games for the first time, or maybe you played them decades ago and feel the urge to return. Either way, that's a great idea. These games shaped the entire RPG genre, and even today, they still have a very special kind of charm. But here's the thing. Today, many players approach them like a puzzle to solve as quickly as possible, and honestly, that's not really how these games were meant to be played. Let me show you the old school way. Now, it seems tempting to install them and then open a walkthrough and some references plus maps on your second screen and just brush through them, just to say, hey, I played it. Far be it from me to judge how you enjoy those kind of games, but I'd like to suggest a different approach. Playing and actually enjoying these games they were played back in the 80s and 90s, before the days of the internet. If you are willing to give this a try, let me show you how most of us did approach playing those timeless classics. So, let me take you back to the good old days of the late 1980s. You're sitting in front of your C64, Amiga, an early PC, or even an original Apple II, and you're ready to dive into a new RPG. Actually, let me take you further one extra step. You're at the computer store, looking at all those amazing looking boxes, promising adventure and hours of questing. You decide to pick up, let's say, Ultima 5. After all, the cover artwork is really awesome. It's still the background image for the buttons on my Stream Deck, by the way. And you've heard from some guys at school that it's really awesome, but also really hard. So you decide to use your saved up allowance to buy the game and get onto the bus or your parents' car to get home. You feel excitement building, studying the artwork closely, checking out the promising description on the back of the box, and then you rip the plastic wrap and open the box, staring at the items inside. The discs, the folded cloth map of Britannia, the mysterious coin, the reference cards, and the book of lore. Since it's still quite some time until you will be home, you start to prepare your adventure by immersing yourself into the lore book. You learn about the history and legends of Britannia, reminding you of the adventures you may have had before, killing Mundane and Minix and their offspring in Caesarea, then returning to a reshaped world to become the avatar of virtue. Next, the book tells you about Britannia's geography and its government. You read about the economy and different kinds of shops. The names of towns and hamlets may bring a smile to your face because, of course, you have been to Trinsic, Scarabray, and New Maginsia before. You then learn of the new class system, consisting of mages, bards, and fighters, and you start considering which of these you will choose. You learn about this world's astronomy and find a translation of the runes, which will be handy as road signs and other markers in games that are written in these runes. There even is a music system, and you find sheet music for Stones, that classic Ultima song. You wonder whether this will be needed while actually playing, or whether the inclusion of this in the book is just a mere labor of love. Before you arrive home, you've read about combat and the descriptions of the different monsters, from bats over gremlins to reapers. You shiver because these guys and their ability to put characters to sleep are highly annoying. So, you arrive home. It's Saturday, early afternoon. You have several hours to play today and tomorrow. You get some soda, some treats, and install the game. Next to the keyboard, you have the reference cards, the lore book, the manual, and the cloth map is spread open on your desk. I remember these kinds of moments well, and maybe so do you. This is exactly the scenario I experienced with Ultima 6 back in the day, reading the material while my uncle drove us back to the house I lived in. And I still remember the excitement, the anticipation of just wanting to dive into this world and start the adventure. Looking out the car window, seeing that it would still be another 20 minutes before we'd get there, wishing we would go faster. And then I'd play the game, with the setup being exactly as I described, plus cookies, soda, and a notebook, which was an essential tool for playing back then. I'll get to that shortly. Now, compare this to today's usual experience. You go to GOG to get one of those games and download it. Fortunately, the games usually work even on a modern PC, and GOG was nice enough to add scans of the reference cards, manuals, and books, plus the map as a PDFs or images. So you may glance over those, but who reads something like this in advance? Modern games usually tell you everything you need to know in their UI, in cinematics or dialogues in game. There's quest logs and pointers. So you start the game, maybe cringe a little bit at the very outdated looking pixel graphics and sound, go in and realize you have no idea what to do. Before Ultima 6 introduced the UI with clickable actions, which is quite similar to a modern game UI, those old games often were played with keyword commands such as L for look, S for search, T for talking or transacting. Mixing reagents for spells or casting those required several buttons, and you needed to look up or memorize either the correct keys for the spells. In the old games like C for cleric spell and C for heal, or the actual spells in Ultima 5 like Vast Flam for a fireball or Vasmani for a great heal. So, in order to heal one of your party members, you had to hit C for cast, choose who would cast, then press V and M for Vasmani. Hopefully, you had mixed up the reagents in advance. So, what to do? You can open the reference card on your second screen or cell phone. If it's on your second screen, tapping out to scroll down in the PDF will make the DOSBox window of the game smaller. So, every time you want to go back to the game, you have to click the window and press Alt and Enter to maximize it. That's not exactly handy. So, let us set up our desk for playing Ultima 5. I recommend to print out the books. No, really. And by the way, Ultima 5 is just one example. If you feel like replaying Wizardry, one of those, or Bard's Tale, or any of the old SSI games, this applies as well. So, yes, I recommend to print out the books. It may not be all that sustainable, but that way you can easily look up whatever you need. You can actually touch that material without ever tapping out. If you don't have a printer, I don't have one, you could consider getting them printed for like $2 to $3 or euros at a copy shop. One possible alternative would be using a tablet, but if you want to go for the old school way, printing is the way to go. Now, we get to the notebook. This will be one of the most important tools here. Back then, the notebook was not optional. It was part of the game. After all, the game will throw a lot of clues and vital information at you. I talked about the sheet music for stones in Ultima 5. Guess what? You actually have to play that piece in-game on a harpsichord. An NPC will teach you how and quiz you in order to actually help you understand how to play those notes on your keyboard. Other NPCs will hint at certain places, give you keywords, or tell you the names of certain characters, and these names will be incredibly important later on. You may want to write down spells you use the most, plus their reagents on an extra page for even quicker reference. Here are some pictures of my notebook from a recent playthrough of Ultima 4. This may seem weird to you, but I ordered a nice looking notebook on Amazon as I didn't just want to go for those typical legal sized cookie cutter ones you get at the supermarket. It's my tool for playing those games, so I chose one that looks nice and is fun to write in. As an example for my Ultima 4 playthrough I began on this channel in 2023, I had 5 legal-sized pages of notes, from coordinates to location hints, mantras for the shrines, hints at other places to search for. Believe me, playing games like these without taking notes can be incredibly frustrating. And don't even get me started on dungeon maps, as without them you will get lost quickly, trust me. I recently wanted to record some footage of Ultima 3, and for that, I sent my group into a dungeon. I didn't draw a map, and about 5 minutes later and 2 levels deeper in the dungeon, I was lost. I searched for the exit for about 20 minutes, getting interrupted by an attacking group of monsters before I gave up. So, you start playing the game, and you eventually get stumped. You can't find a certain place or are simply not sure what to do. Mind you, Ultima 5 sometimes is considered the most difficult of the Ultima games. Enemies can be quite deadly, and even if they don't kill you directly, their poison may. Most citizens consider the avatar, you, a villain. There is a feeling of paranoia because some of them hate the current regime, while others are staunch supporters. Where to go, whom to trust, where to find followers for your party in order to face all these challenges. Here is the other thing. This is the most important piece of advice actually. Trust the process. Please don't use walkthroughs and guides unless you really get stuck. And even then, try to find that one little bit of info that will let you overcome that obstacle, then close the walkthrough again. Rushing through these games with an optimized walkthrough will most likely take away all magic these games still have. Yes, they are challenging. There are no quest markers, just little bits of info, hints, and then there are different islands, many dungeons and riddles too. One of them related to a certain piece of music, you know. Today, there are guides and walkthroughs for almost every game. Text guides, video guides, even step-by-step playthroughs you can follow. And that's fine, but if you play these games like that, the only accomplishment left is finishing the game, not discovering it. Here's another example. I mentioned my playthrough of Ultima 4, which I unfortunately didn't complete yet as life interfered after episode 63. Yes, you read that right. 63 episodes, each between 20 and 30 minutes. That's roughly 25 to 30 hours of gameplay, and I was about 70% through. That's quite a lot of gameplay for a game from 1985. Even though I did remember some things from my old playthrough, the original one, like how to avoid losing virtue in certain situations, it had been more than 30 years since my first playthrough, so I had to figure out almost everything. Where to find the runes, the mantras and the shrines, where to find companions for my group, where to get the other key items. And it was so much fun, even when I got lost or ended up in a dead end. And this is a big part of the experience. Sure, some games had play guides, which I never bought or simply couldn't afford. Some games even had hotlines you could call for hints. Maybe a friend of yours had proceeded further and may give you a hint. Or you would find a rather compressed walkthrough with some rudimentary maps in a gaming magazine, which required luck as the magazine had to choose that game to print a walkthrough for, and you had to have the budget to buy that magazine. If the game was all new, forget about it. If it was even a few years old, good luck on getting your hands on an old magazine issue to get that elusive walkthrough. It was an exception, not the norm. And finally, another important thing. These games still have a lot to offer. Stories, excitement, challenges, and yes, magic. Sure, if you grew up with games like World of Warcraft, Skyrim, Baldur's Gate 3, I can imagine it's harrowing to look at the in-game graphics of those classic games and hear those beeps and boops that is the game sound. But if you let your imagination add colors, details and life to it, it can be so much fun to explore Britannia. This is what we did back in the day when colors, sprites and pixels were as limited as our allowances. After staring at the artwork on the box and in the manuals, after reading the lore of the world, we turned those choppy blocks into a vibrant world. And this still works. It still worked for me in World of Warcraft too, when I realized you can cross a continent in just a few minutes on a flying mount, yet the world still feels really big with different countries to adventure in. So, immerse yourself. Try to ignore the rudimentary graphics. See them as outlines of a much more vibrant and detailed world, and let your imagination soften those edges. And then, Focus on finding Lord British and figuring out just who those Shadow Lords are. And don't forget to write down their names. So, thank you for joining me on a little trip down memory lane. Thanks for hearing me out. I talked to several younger players who were interested in trying these classic games, and I even gifted one of those games to one of them. A lot of times the feedback would be, dude, it looks so old, I can't do this. Or, I finished it in 7 hours 31 minutes. Or, I am so stuck, I give up. If you grew up with these games, you know what those endless Saturdays felt like. And if you didn't, maybe this is your chance to experience one. So, grab a notebook, print the manual, take your time, and let the game draw you in. Let's rediscover that magic. Thank you for watching.